This is Sleeping Temple. You have arrived at a quieter place. Tonight's story is The Goodnight Letter. Tonight, autumn rain drifts softly through Willow Town. Not heavy rain, not hurried rain, only a slow, quiet rain that seems to fall together with the lantern light, as if the sky itself has lowered its voice for the evening. The little town rests beside the canal, wrapped in a shawl of mist and amber glow. The roofs are dark and shining. The narrow lanes are washed clean. Small puddles gather beneath wooden steps, holding tiny reflections of windows, eaves, and paper lanterns. Now and then, a drop slips from the edge of a roof and joins the others with the softest sound. Along the canal, red and golden leaves float gently upon the dark water. They do not rush. They do not turn quickly. They drift beneath the old stone bridge, one by one, like unfinished letters carried slowly through the night. Some leaves are curled at the edges, as if they have already traveled far. Some are bright, as if they still remember the afternoon sun. Some rest against the side of a small boat tied near the bank, then loosen again when the water breathes beneath them. Together they move through Willow Town with no address and no hurry. The tea shop has closed its blue curtains. The bakery has cooled its oven. The lantern maker has put away his brushes and paper frames. Behind every window, life has become softer. A cup has been set beside a bed. A book has been left open on a chair. A sleepy child has forgotten one wool sock near the door. Everything is quiet enough for the rain to be heard, and the rain seems to know every corner of the town. It also knows how to make the evening feel smaller in the kindest way. The distant hills fade behind a veil of gray. The last birds tuck themselves beneath the shelter of dark branches. Even the clock in the little square seems to tick more softly, as if it understands that tonight is not a night for counting time too carefully. It taps on the tiled roofs. It whispers on the bridge stones. It slips down the willow branches and gathers at the tips of leaves before falling into the canal. It follows the curve of the water past the sleeping boats, past the warm windows, past the little wooden room where Willow, the orange cat, lives, beside an old book and a lantern. On autumn nights like this, Willow Town feels as though it is listening. Listening to the rain, listening to the river, listening to all the small words that people carry quietly inside themselves, even after the day has ended. Inside the wooden room beside the canal, the stove glows softly. Its small fire is not bright enough to wake the room, only warm enough to hold back the dampness of the rain. The kettle hums above the gentle flame, out a thin thread of steam that curls slowly into the air. It smells faintly of roasted tea, old paper, clean wood, and the quiet comfort of a room that has known many peaceful nights. Rain taps gently against the window. Tap, then silence. Tap, tap. Then the hush of water sliding down the glass. Near the lantern, Willow sleeps curled beside the old book. His tail rests over his paws. His whiskers twitch once, as if he is dreaming of a warm windowsill, or a bowl of milk, or perhaps of the moon moving across the canal. The lantern beside him glows the color of honey. Its light touches the table, the chair, the wool blanket, the shelf of tiny jars, and the old book's warm brown cover. The book is always there. It is not a grand book. It has no golden lock, no shining title, and no bright ribbon to mark its place. Its corners are soft for many seasons. Its pages are thick and cream-colored, with edges that look as though they have been dipped in tea. During ordinary days, it rests quietly, gathering dust and lantern light. But on certain autumn nights, when the rain is slow enough, and the town is quiet enough, and someone somewhere has a sentence waiting patiently in the heart, the old book opens by itself. Tonight, it begins with the smallest sound, a soft lift of paper, a gentle sigh from the spine. Then one page rises, turns, and settles again. Willow's ears move. His eyes open halfway, gold and sleepy in the lantern glow. He does not look surprised. Willow has seen many pages open in the night. He has seen the book remember birthdays, lost buttons, forgotten songs, and names spoken only in dreams. He has seen it hold the kind of stories that never shout, but sit quietly beside people until they are ready to breathe. The book turns another page. Outside, a red leaf touches the window, rests there for a moment, and slides away. Willow slowly lifts his head. He watches the blank page shine softly under the lantern. No ink appears yet. No sentence writes itself yet. The page simply waits, patient and open, like a palm turned upward to catch the rain. Somewhere in Willow Town, someone is sitting before a blank sheet of paper, and the old book has begun to listen. The letter belongs to the old postman of Willow Town. For many years, the postman carried letters through every season. He carried spring letters folded with pressed blossoms, summer letters smelling faintly of sun-warmed paper, winter letters tucked deep inside his coat so the snow would not wet the ink, and in autumn, when the roads were lined with gold and brown leaves, he He carried letters beneath a wide, dark umbrella, walking slowly from door to door. Everyone in Willow Town knew the sound of his steps. Not quick steps, not loud steps, only steady steps on stone, wood, earth, and bridge. He delivered letters from travelers returning home. He delivered bills for tea shop owners, careful notes from tailors, little drawings folded into envelopes by children, and warm holiday greetings written in trembling handwriting. Sometimes a letter made someone laugh. Sometimes it made someone sit down quietly by the window. Sometimes it was read aloud at a kitchen table while soup steamed in bowls and the evening settled around the room. The postman never hurried people when they opened their envelopes. He would simply stand beneath the eaves, look at the rain, and wait. He understood that words needed space. Even a small letter could carry a long journey inside it. When he was younger, his bag had felt heavy by the end of the day. Now it was lighter, because fewer people wrote on paper than before. Still, he kept the old leather satchel polished and ready. Its strap had softened to the shape of his shoulder. Its brass buckle had dulled with time. Inside there was always the smell of paper, string, ink, and distant weather. He knew every street in Willow Town. He knew which house had a step that creaked. He knew which dog barked only when it was raining. He knew which window would open before he even knocked, and which old woman liked him to leave her letters beneath the flower pot because she did not hear the door anymore. He carried other people's words so carefully that many in town believed he had no heavy words of his own. But that was not true. In the small drawer of his writing desk, beneath a bundle of unused envelopes and a narrow box of black ink, there was one sheet of paper that had waited for a very long time. It had been taken out many times, smoothed flat, and put away again. It had traveled nowhere, though it had belonged to the postman all these years. It was the one letter he had never finished. It had no stamp, no sealed flap, no address written in the corner, only a blank space at the top and the quiet weight of words that had not yet found their way onto the page. Tonight, as autumn rain moves through Willow Town, the old postman sits near his window. The lantern on his desk is dim, but warm. The paper waits before him. His hands rest on either side of it. He has carried so many messages for others, and now, at last, the night seems gentle enough to carry one message for him. Long ago, when the postman was still young, he had a dear friend. In those days, his hair was dark, his steps were quick, and his satchel looked almost too new upon his shoulder. He had not yet learned the names of every stone lane. He had not yet learned that some people read good news very quietly, and some people fold difficult news back into the envelope before they can continue. He was still learning the slow work of carrying words between hearts. His friend was learning too. Together they sat beside the river drinking tea during autumn evenings. The friend would bring roasted chestnuts wrapped in cloth, and the young postman would bring 2 cups from his mother's kitchen. They would sit beneath the willow branches and watch leaves drift past, guessing where each one might go. This one, the friend might say, will reach the bridge by moonrise. This one, the young postman might answer, will become a boat for a sleeping cricket. Then they would laugh softly, not because the jokes were very funny, but because the evening was wide and gentle, and they were young enough to believe that time moved as slowly as the river. Together they crossed the old stone bridge beneath lantern light. Together they carried baskets during market days. Together they listened to summer insects, winter bells, and the first rain of spring. But autumn was always the season they loved most. Autumn made the town feel thoughtful. It painted the trees in colors that seemed to glow even when the sky was gray. It gave every road a soft sound underfoot. Then, one autumn, the friend left. Beyond the mountains, beyond the river roads, toward a different life far away. There was no great quarrel, no door slammed, no sharp word broke the friendship. It was simply time, as it sometimes is, for one person to follow a road that another person cannot follow. On the morning of departure, the sky was pale. Rain had not yet begun, but the air smelled of it. The friend carried one bag and wore a brown coat with a loose button at the sleeve. They stood near the bridge. The young postman wanted to say many things. He wanted to say, "Write when you arrive." He wanted to say, "I will remember the river." He wanted to say, "I do not know what the town will feel like without you walking beside me." But the words gathered too closely in his chest, and none of them came out clearly. So he only said, "Take care." And the friend smiled and said, "Until next time." For a while, letters came. They arrived with mountain dust on the envelopes and unfamiliar postmarks in the corner. The friend wrote of long roads, new tea houses, cold mornings, bright markets, and a window that faced the sunrise. The young postman read each letter more than once. He kept them in a wooden box under his bed. Then the letters became less frequent. Then the seasons became busier. Then years passed, not loudly, not suddenly, but like rain smoothing stone. Still, whenever autumn returned to Willow Town, The postman remembered the bridge, the tea, the chestnuts, and the friend beyond the mountains. He remembered without bitterness. He remembered the way one remembers a lantern that once lit a long road. And every autumn he thought he might write back. Every autumn he took out a blank page, and every autumn he put it away again. Tonight, the old postman sits alone beside the window. Rain taps softly against the paper screen. The room is small and orderly, the way rooms become after many years of being lived in gently. A wool coat hangs by the door. A pair of polished shoes rests beneath it. On the shelf, a row of cups stands with their handles turned the same way. Near the desk, a low stove gives off a patient warmth. The lantern glows above the paper. Before him rests the blank sheet. It is not new anymore. Its edges have softened from being held. One corner has a faint crease where his thumb once pressed too long. Yet the center of the paper remains open and pale, as if it has been saving its quietness for this exact night. The postman lifts the inkstone from its little wooden tray. He pours a small drop of water onto the dark surface, then moves the ink stick slowly in a circle. The sound is almost too soft to hear. Stone against ink, ink against water, rain against the window, round and round until the water deepens into black. He takes the brush in his hand. The handle is smooth from use. The bristles come together in a fine dark point. For a long while he does not write. He only watches the tip of the brush hover above the paper. There are so many ways to begin a letter after many years. Dear friend, do you remember me? I hope this finds you well. I have meant to write for a long time. Each beginning feels too formal, too small, too late, or too careful. The postman smiles faintly at himself. After all these years of carrying letters, he still does not know how to begin his own. Outside, a leaf loosens from a branch and glides down through the rain. It lands in the canal and turns once. The lantern light from the window stretches across the water and trembles. The old postman breathes in, then breathes out. His shoulders lower a little. He is not trying to write the perfect letter anymore. He is not trying to explain every season. He is not trying to gather all the lost afternoons and fit them into one page. He is only trying to begin. The brush touches the paper, a tiny sound, a dark line, then another. Slowly, carefully, he writes 4 quiet words. Long time no see. When the words are finished, sets the brush down. The ink shines wetly for a moment, reflecting the lantern in 4 small fragments. He looks at the words, and something in the room seems to soften. Not because everything has been answered, not because the letter knows where to go, but because the first words have finally arrived. The postman touches the edge of the paper with one finger. He does not fold it. He does not hide it away. He lets it rest openly on the desk while the rain keeps speaking in its gentle, patient way. Long time no see. The words are simple, and sometimes simple words are the ones that wait the longest. Across the canal, Willow slowly rises from beside the lantern. The old book is open now, and the blank page glows softly in the honey-colored light. Willow steps onto the table without making a sound. His paws are small and careful. His tail curves behind him like a quiet question. For a moment, he looks through the rain-streaked window toward the postman's house, where one tiny square of lantern light still shines. Then Willow walks softly toward the old book. He lowers his head. He listens. Perhaps he hears the brush moving over paper. Perhaps he hears the old postman's breath becoming steadier. Perhaps he hears something even quieter than sound. The feeling of a sentence that has waited a long time and is finally being allowed to exist. Willow places one gentle paw upon the blank page, and slowly, faint lines begin appearing across the paper. They do not hurry. They are not dark at first. They arrive like mist becoming visible, like rain on a window, like a memory remembered without being forced. The lines curve and settle, forming words in a handwriting that is almost, but not quite, the postman's own. Some letters are written for distant people, and some letters are written for the version of ourselves still waiting in the past. Willow blinks once. The lantern flame leans slightly, though there is no wind in the room. On the page, more words appear. There is the young postman standing on the bridge, wanting to speak and not knowing how. There is the friend smiling beneath a pale autumn sky. There is the first letter received from beyond the mountains. There is the wooden box beneath the bed. There are seasons when the postman meant to write and did not. There are evenings when he opened the drawer, touched the blank page, and closed it again. But the old book does not write these memories with blame. It writes them gently, as if placing a blanket over each one. The book seems to know that the past is not always waiting to be corrected. Sometimes it is only waiting to be held with kindness. Sometimes the younger self does not need a perfect explanation. Sometimes he only needs to hear that he was young and quiet and doing his best with the words he had. Across the canal, the old postman continues writing. He writes of the bridge beside the river. He writes of roasted chestnuts and cups of tea. He writes of the friend's brown coat and the loose button at the sleeve. He writes of the many autumns when he thought of sending a letter and did not. But the more he writes, the less the letter seems to belong only to the friend beyond the mountains. It begins to belong to the young man he once was. The young man who stood beneath the cloudy sky and could only say, "Take care." The young man who thought silence meant failure. The young man who did not yet understand that some affection stays quiet, not because it is small, but because it is very deep. Willow keeps his paw on the page. His eyes grow soft and sleepy again. The rain outside continues its slow reading of the town, line by line, roof by roof, leaf by leaf. And in the warm wooden room, the old book holds the letter carefully, not as something lost, not as something late, but as something finally ready to be written. The postman no longer worries about addresses, no longer worries about replies, no longer worries whether the road beyond the mountains still leads to the same place, or whether the friend still lives beneath the same sunrise-facing window, or whether a letter sent after so many years would arrive at the right door. Instead, he simply writes. He writes slowly, the way rain writes on water. He does not cross out much. He does not try to make the sentences beautiful. He lets them be plain, warm, and true. I still remember the bridge beside the river. I still remember the autumn evenings when we shared tea beneath the lanterns. I still remember how we guessed where the leaves would go. I still remember your coat on the morning you left. He pauses after that sentence. The brush rests in the dish. The old postman looks toward the window, where rain has turned the outside world into soft shapes and dim gold. For a moment, he can almost see the bridge as it was long ago. He can almost hear two young voices counting leaves in the current. But the memory does not pull at him sharply tonight. It sits beside him like an old companion. He takes up the brush again. I hope the roads were kind to you. I hope you found tea that warmed your hands. I hope some evenings were gentle enough for you to remember Willow Town with a quiet and steady heart. The ink darkens on the page. The paper accepts each word without asking where it will be sent. The rain accepts each pause. The lantern accepts each silence. Then the postman writes something he did not know he needed to write. I hope the younger version of me can forgive himself for not saying more. When the sentence is finished, he sits very still. The room seems to grow even quieter. The kettle has stopped humming. The stove glows low. Outside, the canal carries leaves beneath the bridge, the same way it has carried leaves for many years. One leaf turns slowly in the water, then slips free and continues on. The old postman reads the sentence again. I hope the younger version of me can forgive himself for not saying more. A long breath leaves him, not a sad breath, not a broken breath, only the kind of breath that comes when a heavy coat is finally taken from the shoulders and hung by the door. He writes one final line. I hope tonight I can finally sleep peacefully too. The letter's not finished in the way letters are usually finished. There is no address. There is no promise to send it in the morning. There is no careful folding, no envelope, no stamp. The postman simply lays the brush down and lets the words rest. Perhaps one day he will send it. Perhaps he will keep it in the drawer. Perhaps the rain has already carried it somewhere no post road can reach. For tonight, that is enough. The old postman leans back in his chair. His face is calm in the lantern light. He looks older than the young man on the bridge, of course, but also softer, as if the years have finally made room for him to be kind to himself. Outside, Willow Town sleeps on, and across the canal, the old book closes one page halfway, as gently as a hand resting over a sleeping heart. If tonight there is also a letter living quietly inside your heart, perhaps you do not need to search for the address yet. Perhaps you do not need to know exactly who should read it. Perhaps you do not need to find the perfect beginning or explain every season or gather every feeling into the right words before you are allowed to rest. Perhaps tonight you only need to imagine placing that letter gently beside Willow's window. The window is warm with lantern light. Outside, autumn rain moves slowly through Willow Town. The canal is dark and soft. Red and golden leaves drift beneath the old bridge. Somewhere nearby, the kettle gives one last quiet sigh. Somewhere across the water, the old postman has left his letter open on the desk, not hidden, not hurried, not judged. You may place your own letter there too. It can be a letter to someone far away. It can be a letter to someone you miss. It can be a letter to a day that never quite ended inside you. It can be a letter to the younger version of yourself who did not know what to say, who tried to be brave, who carried more than anyone could see. You do not have to write it perfectly. You do not even have to write it with words. A breath can be a sentence. A sigh can be a folded page. A quiet wish can be enough ink for one gentle line. The autumn rain will read it slowly, not all at once, not with questions, only slowly, drop by drop, as it reads the roof tiles, the bridge stones, the willow leaves, and the sleeping water of the canal. The lantern light will keep it safe and will shine over the page without asking it to be finished. It will warm the corners. It will let the ink dry. It will let the spaces between the words remain soft and open. And Willow will sit beside it for a while, his orange fur glowing in the dim room, his eyes half closed, his tail curled around his paws. He will not hurry you. He will not ask for an address. He will simply stay near the letter, as if every quiet thing deserves a quiet guardian. So if there are words you have carried for a long time, let them rest tonight. If there is a memory that has been waiting at the edge of your thoughts, let the rain sit beside it. If there is a younger self somewhere inside you, still standing on a bridge, still unsure what to say, you may offer that younger self the gentlest message now. You did enough. You were allowed to be quiet. You were still worthy of rest. The rain continues. The lantern glows. The old book closes almost completely, leaving only a thin line of light between its pages. The postman rises from his chair and moves slowly through his room. He does not put the letter away. He leaves it on the desk, open beneath the lamp, where the words can breathe. Then he folds his coat over the chair, lowers the flame, and listens for one more moment to the rain at the window. For the first time in many autumn nights, the blank place in his heart does not feel blank anymore. It feels like a page that has finally been touched by ink. And maybe, as you listen, something inside you can soften too. Not all at once, only gently, only enough for tonight. Let the thoughts become rain. Let the rain become quiet. Let the quiet become a letter folded by the night itself. And when the final sentence is written, you do not have to hold it tightly. You can leave it beside the warm window in Willow Town. You can let the lantern watch over it. You can let Willow curl up nearby. You can let the old postman sleep peacefully in the house across the canal. The town will keep the letter until morning. The bridge will keep the memory. The river will keep moving slowly beneath the leaves. And you may rest now, softly, safely, as if every word that needed to be written has been placed somewhere kind.